artists for being here. And I'm also going to give you guys a bit of a background on Darcy Wilson, who was kind enough to say yes to facilitating this talk and be with us here tonight. So Darcy Wilson is an Atlantic Canadian artist whose work laments past and ongoing colonial interactions with the natural world. From her own perspective as a descendant of European settlers in Canada, she notes instances in which her culture's affection and desire for nature are impeded by its tendency to harm. So Darcy's interdisciplinary work has been presented across Canada at Dalhousie University, Beaverbrook Art Gallery, the Owens Art Gallery, Owens Art Gallery, as well as at Flotilla, Connexion ARC, and her work has been included in the 2019 Bonavista Biennale. Darcy is based in Corner Brook, Newfoundland, where she is the assistant professor in the visual arts program at Memorial University of Newfoundland, Grenfell Campus. And I'm also going to add as a fun fact that Darcy was also shortlisted for the National Sobey Art Award in 2019 and longlisted once again in 2020. So overall powerhouse in the arts community for sure. Very thankful to have you. Very thankful to have Tangiene and Evelyn as well. Sorry, I've embarrassed you now, so I'm going to hand it over so Darcy can start the conversation.
I'm like, oh, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, there are hand clapping emojis. That's so nice. I feel really lucky to be here to join you today. And let's send some hand clapping emojis to the artists. So exciting to speak with Evelyn and Tangiene today. I am actually currently visiting my mother in Halifax, and so I'd also like to say a land acknowledgement for this region, because I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I am speaking to you from Chibuktuk, or Halifax in Mi'kma'ki, and that Mi'kma'ki is the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And I'd also like to say that I feel really honored to be able to join you today. And also, I think these meetings are so important, and I've really, really appreciated all of the work and labor that Eastern Edge has been doing to keep everybody connected. I'm not able to join as much as I'd like to. I have a small toddler who's kept me busy, and you might hear him running around upstairs. It's almost bath time, so but I just think it's so special that we can still gather and have these connections. It really feels like we're kind of in the same sort of living room together. So it's great to have such a wonderful turnout. A little bit of housekeeping. Thank you, Daniel, for going over all of the sort of bits and tidbits about kind of cameras and mutes and all that. When I'm not speaking, I'll turn off my camera to make sure kind of bandwidth and everything is going okay, and I'll also mute. And I just wanted to mention the chat line. So if anyone has any questions for our artists in residence, please feel free to post those in the chat line. And so we'll begin today by, Evelyn and Tangiene, I'm hoping we can sort of get to know more about you and your work, but also the residency and how you are kind of working through the pandemic, how it's impacting your practice. And then we'll have a sort of open it up for any questions, but also be great to hear from other community members today about, similar topics. How are you coping right now? How is the pandemic impacting your work? And it's a chance for us to kind of gather together and also strategize and share tips too, and just reconnect. It's such a pleasure to do that. So I see a couple notes in the chat line. I'll just take a quick look. Lots of hellos. Yay, great. Awesome. So yeah, we can all kind of keep an eye on that. All right, I'm going to begin by saying, once again, I'm really happy to be sort of hosting this conversation and to be able to speak with two artists who I feel you're really succeeding at cutting through the coldness of this time with your work. I've really loved following your Instagram feeds, getting to know your artwork, and I think that you are creating works right now during this residency, and your practices previously as well, works that are vibrant and intimate and accessible even through the coldness of the screen. So congratulations to you, and thank you for your work. It's just, I really have enjoyed looking through it and experiencing it. And on that note, I have a sort of get to know you, easy kind of fun question. And I'm wondering if you could speak about why did you want to be an artist? Can you talk a little bit about your journey into this field to get us started? I don't know if one of you would prefer to go first, but feel free to just jump in. Yeah, okay, let's do, how about Evelyn? Why don't you jump in? I'll mute now.
Yeah. So why did I want to become an artist? I think like a lot of people who just start out drawing as kids, you don't really expect it to be your vocation. And so I didn't think I was gonna do this for a long time, and really only in university when I got into OCAD, and it was just general art, and you were forced to sort of pick a major. And I saw illustration and I went, wow, I didn't even know that existed as a job. Commercial arts hadn't even been on my radar. And so I jumped into that, and it was wonderful and difficult, and I haven't, and I got to experience a lot of different kind of art through that, and also through friends like James in the chat here that were in different programs, and just the different kind of art and design that were present at the school. And anyhow, so yeah, just that's kind of how it started. Is I just liked drawing and painting, and I thought I was good at it, so that helps. And so it just sort of went into that, and sort of this artist aspect of my artist illustrator title is semi-new as well. Like I haven't done too much in that realm, other than a few shows here and there, and like when I was younger, and but it was really this year where I managed to get into 2 residencies, but one got canceled, and so this was really lovely to get into this one. So anyways, I'm just at the beginning. Yeah.
Congratulations on the residency. I'm sorry to hear the other one got canceled, and we'll talk a little bit about residencies in a second too, but thanks for sharing that. It's always so interesting to see how people kind of enter into this field, I find. Yeah, Tangiene, did you want to jump up next?
Oh, sure. Okay. And thanks, Evelyn. That helped me actually. Can you actually? I do have one favor, Darcy. Can you actually repeat the question?
Yes, absolutely. And the question is really, why did you want to be an artist? And can you speak a little bit about your journey into this field?
Okay. I think it is from childhood, like always. It might be attention, like when I was a little kid, always wanting to draw and write and perform, and just very natural for me to goof around and draw pictures. And then when I was in like junior high and high school, I think that was just my way of expressing myself, maybe like teenage hormones. And then when I went to school, university, I actually chose English literature. I'm from Edmonton, Alberta, and I was actually more interested in creative writing, but they didn't have any creative writing courses at the time. And at that particular time in my life, I needed to stay in Edmonton. But what was happening is my first year of university, I just kept drawing and painting and having just little mini cafe art shows. And I realized I wasn't really interested in writing essays or papers every week. And I realized like it was ever since a child, junior high, high school, onward, it was just something I always wanted to do. That was a way to express myself, maybe to connect with others, like how I usually like to draw portraits. That's my way of connecting with people. Yeah, I think that just might be it in a nutshell.
That's great. And I mean, speaking of connecting with people. I mean, I love your portraits and the drawings, and I feel when I'm looking at your work, and yours as well, Evelyn, when I'm looking at it, I feel that it feels personal and honest and really fresh. And could you tell us maybe, Tangiene, this time, can you tell us a little bit about your work right now and sort of what you're working on in your practice leading up to the residency?
Absolutely. Like I usually I keep it pretty simple. I have done some abstract drawing and portrait drawing, but especially with the pandemic, I was feeling I needed to make a connection with other people. I started by, there was a Grossmoen project, and I didn't really understand it. I actually applied for it, but I didn't apply for it properly. I didn't really know what I was doing. It was my very first time applying for any kind of grant, and it was an excellent learning experience. But I just wanted to show what it was like for myself. I moved to St. John's in June. My husband got a job in April in Corner Brook, and it was like really fast. Like our move was just kind of like, you got the job, okay, we're going to be moving there. And within a few weeks, to me, that's pretty fast, especially because we'd moved all the way from Vancouver. And it was because of the isolation of being in a whole new town. Corner Brook, everybody, you know what, everybody in St. John's is like, you're going to love Corner Brook. It's like beautiful and gorgeous, and the people are amazing, and it's arts community, you'll fit right in. And then I felt like, it wasn't that I didn't feel like I fit right in, I felt like there was nothing to fit into because there was all this empty void due to the pandemic, right? And so that was my way. Like I wanted to go see Grossmoen, which everybody says is gorgeous, but it was maybe creating my own, like in my own imagination. I didn't want to leave the car to go into a town. I didn't want to go into Woody Point or Rocky Harbor or Norris Point. I didn't want to, or I saw the table sounds were closed, and it probably was the time of year too. And I just grew my own fear. So I thought, well, why don't I just make drawings about that, about like me wanting to engage with the spectacular, amazing nature of Newfoundland, and I can't. I'm just behind the wheel of a car, got a mask on, and it's my own fear maybe that's making me not leave the car, my own fear. And so I just wanted to, again, have a connection with others and just relay my experience, because I'm sure everybody has gone through something in the pandemic, and everybody had some privileges, everybody had some difficulties. I'm sure we all have a lot to share. So that's the first thing with pandemic. And then also seeing my friend Anna describe her isolation and just the beauty of the pictures, the striking pictures that she had up on her social media. I thought that was another way to connect as well, both to her and to St. John's.
Sorry, I was unmuted. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I can't imagine moving to a new town in Corner Brook. And I know there are a few Corner Brookers on here tonight, so be sure to reach out in the new year, and we can all go for walks now, and because I think it'll be a little better. But back to art talk.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that. And maybe, Evelyn, I'll pass it over to you, because can you tell us about your practice as a whole? Kind of what have you been working on, or what is your work about right now?
Yeah, sure. I'm also sort of a newcomer here. We moved in 2018 for my partner's university. And it was just going to be for 1.5 years, but we kind of stayed. It was just the arts community that really pulled me in. Anyhow, so since then, I just keep painting and drawing, and for practice and for studies. I like to do a lot of studies. And when we came here, it was like boom, landscape and nature, and like I know everyone is hit by that when they come here, and I've been coming here as a kid. My family's from here, so I know it sort of, but it's not in like an artistic way that I really wanted to look and see. So for the past 2 years, I've been just taking lots of pictures, trying to find out, and I've never done much landscape painting. I thought it was not that interesting. Like group of 7, I didn't really care about much before. I've changed, but anyhow, so that was my sort of goal, was to try and work on backgrounds, especially in illustration, where I had previously done a lot of images that were kind of isolated on the white space of the page or the canvas. And so, yeah, just delving into nature and the landscapes, and also really going in close, looking at the ground cover and how beautiful it is, and the lichen, the moss, everything, just like a beautiful carpet and the rocks. Okay, I could just name everything, but but that's what really has been capturing my imagination lately.
So sort of getting to know that your new home kind of through painting and drawing in sort of lens of an artist. And actually, so where did that take you during the residency? Because I've noticed, kind of reading about your work, you as we all isolated and sort of went into lockdown, it seems like then it seemed you were focusing more on your immediate surroundings and your neighborhood. And can you speak a little bit about that body of work that's emerging now?
Sure. Yeah, it turned out to be quite a natural progression from what I had already been doing, except instead of really focusing on those places that you might drive to and hike and purposefully go to somewhere to do a thing. These kinds of walks I was doing every day, I would just go out at the door and go, okay, I'm just gonna meander somewhere. And then I started thinking, like, we really prioritize certain places, and especially like, what I had been previously painting was probably nowhere near my circle of where I could walk in a day or something. So I really liked sort of looking back on my walking, and then just sort of reaching in, trying to remember, because I didn't take that many photos, because again, it wasn't all that memorable to be like, oh yeah, I should take a shot of that so I can maybe draw that later. It only happened a few times. So what I did take photos of, went back and I looked and I thought, oh yeah, what was I feeling then, maybe, and maybe trying to imagine what I was feeling as well, because it's impossible to remember everything. And I just knew that when I was walking and moving through, I was noticing moss on the ground, or like a little moss that had been dislodged by the snow and just thrown onto the ground. And my partner picked it up and she used it. She put it in a little jar, tried to make it a little tray. So just all these kinds of walks, and I would do them alone or with her, or with, we had my cousin's dog, so sometimes we would go with him, and that was fun. So all these things just sort of like, this means something, or I could make it mean something, and maybe I should work on that kind of thing.
Yeah, it seems like your drawings have really become, some of them that you've posted on Instagram through Eastern Edge's site, it just almost like maps, sort of this sort of map making of this bizarre experience, but this intimate connection with your neighborhood through walking. It's really quite poetic and beautiful. And to go back to Tangiene now, and Tangiene, you referenced a work that you've been doing about your friend. It's your friend Anna, correct? And I love this work, and it's so interesting kind of seeing how your portraiture has progressed too, and because you clearly have a knack for kind of capturing people and feelings from places and kind of gatherings. And how did that change in this project, and how did that kind of well, let me rephrase that. Can you tell us about the project about Anna?
I don't know what to say. I do, you know what, Evelyn struck a chord with me when she was talking about the different terrain, like the moss and the lichen and everything. I did notice with Anna, and it might be something about Newfoundland in particular, where I was really focused on the environment that Anna was in, not only what she personally was going through, like about to enter a body of very ice cold water, as we can see her expression, and then the peacefulness she had afterward, which was a narrative that I created, was that part, the peacefulness on the grass. But I think based on, you know, something that Evelyn had said too, for me, the process, maybe my new lived experience in Newfoundland, I'm focusing now on the smaller, the details, the beauty of the environment and how it affects the person, how the water affected Anna, how the ice affected Anna, like wasn't hesitation, but the cautiousness, the dangerous ice, the exploding in the water, and then like how the grass, and what she had said, if people hadn't heard her, for Anna, she said it felt like a human touch was when she was in the grass as well.
What was Anna experiencing in these works? I know, so it's during the pandemic, just to give everyone a little bit of background in case they haven't seen the works yet.
Sure, and I might be like, I don't want to say verbatim. If you go on her social media, which is public, Anna Swanson on Facebook, and Anna Pandemonium. But my interpretation was that she was feeling a lot of isolation. What she said is it wasn't just the pandemic in the beginning when everybody was isolated. For her, it was actually when the bubble started opening up, when people could invite people into their bubble. She didn't have a bubble. She's not originally from Newfoundland. She didn't have family here. She has friends here, but then they had to invite their own families into their bubbles. Also for her, she felt like it became a very heteronormative space where it became about like mother, father, child versus her own lived experience. So what I interpreted what she was saying on social media was that she felt isolated and she needed to feel human touch. She's a single person. She didn't know when she would feel another human being's touch or hug again. And so through these experiences through nature, she could feel in some way, she could feel a human embrace through nature. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Because I think that's a really important part of interpreting your drawings. And for anyone who hasn't checked them out yet, you can see them on the Eastern Edge website. And they're these beautiful drawings of this person just diving into icy cold water. But you also use the term, I can't remember where I read it, but I believe you use the term sort of survivalist joy. And
that's Anna's terminology. She uses the term survival joy.
Survival joy. That really resonated for me. And that actually brings me to another question, but I'm going to come back to that question in a moment. So I just have maybe two more kind of quick questions before we'll open it up to others as well. But I wanted to know, what is it like being an artist in residence during a pandemic? I mean, it's a totally different way to connect with people. Maybe Tangiene, if you wanted to start with that, and then Evelyn, we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, for me, and I kind of feel like I'm pandering, but I'm really not. Ashley's heard me say this like, 7 times or something in the last meeting, and Daniel. But for me, it really did bring me a sense of community and belonging, like to get involved. I have been quite shy in my life. Like I did attend like a fine arts university, and I was probably involved then and then for a couple of years after, but then I just got more and more introverted. And I wasn't really reaching out to the arts community as much. And so for me, during the pandemic, this is actually good for me in a sense, not the pandemic itself, but having these opportunities to connect with other people, being invited into the community. And also I feel like I've been given permission. I'm just gonna add something really quick, is I was talking to Charlotte and Anna and Daniel, and they're helping me through just the beginning process. And I said to them, like, I don't know if you recall me saying how I used to be quite performative as a child and a bit of a writer. And so I was thinking, like, I really, like, I have a puppy, and I really don't know if this is art. I'm assuming it is because everything is art. But I really want to make funny videos with my dog, and can that be art? Or is that just something people do on, it's no longer called YouTube, it's called TikTok. Like, like, I'm curious, what's the difference between creating art with your puppy as an artist versus TikTok? What's that line? So that's the interesting thing about the pandemic, because I got involved in the community, I got to bounce that idea off of people, and I got permission. They said yes, and I went, oh. So that for me, that's creating art during the pandemic, the end.
Awesome. And totally art. Absolutely. That's great. And if anyone else wants to chime in about that in the chat line, thumbs up. It seems like you're having a good experience through the residency, which is excellent. Evelyn, how about you? How is it being an artist in residence during a pandemic?
Tangiene, sort of also, we're kind of similar in a few ways, newcomers to the island, and sort of this being an opportunity, really, and being able to interact with people I might normally not feel, I don't know, comfortable with, or just like when you go maybe to a gallery opening and you mill about, you might not be able to reach out. So this, as
totally,
even this format is kind of nice. You can just sort of be there and listen, and that might be nice, or you can even talk. So I don't mind this at all, and yeah. Although I don't have any previous experience with residency, not during a pandemic. So
yeah, I don't know if anybody does. Maybe later, if anyone has any experiences, kind of how to navigate an artist residency in these times, be great to hear from you. I don't know. I was a really genuine, like, how is it? What's it like?
I mean, I like creating in my space anyway, so just sort of felt like I got a chance to just kind of throw it out there and have some feedback, which is really nice.
And I know what you mean about when you go to an opening and you have to kind of break into the circle, and it's intimidating. And when you hear we're all on the screen together, and yeah, it's really nice. But you mentioned too, you were saying, well, both of you, there are similarities in your responses. I mean, there's a different kind of ease with this residency of reaching out and connecting from your personal spaces. But I also noticed sort of similarities in your art practice too. And I think it's really neat that you were paired together for this residency and kind of almost sort of curated together. And because your work, I've mentioned this already, but there is an intimacy to your work, and both of you, and it's personal, but I find it really easy to connect to. And also, you are both relying on drawing and painting, and there's such maybe it's through the sort of, this is a time when there is very little touch. Tangiene, you mentioned your friend Anna, who is trying to find sort of touch from nature. But I find in your drawings, both of you, I can see your artist hand and the touch in your drawings, and I find it really like kind of therapeutic to look at them right now. Like that kind of work, I'm craving it so much. I was wondering if, so maybe Tangiene, if you wanted to kind of come up and join in. How has the pandemic impacted your relationship to the medium of drawing and painting? Do you find, has anything changed, or is it making you think about it differently? Or
for me personally, I think this is the very first time like that I can recall actually making artwork about the present moment, about a particular space and time. Like everything is, in a sense, about a particular space and time for me, you know, with following people on social media and drawing that immediate experience. But I've never done this in my life, commented on my own person. I've never actually, like the Gross Morin pictures that I want to do, I just did the charcoal sketches for. That's the first time I've actually included myself in something. I mean, I did a selfie painting 20 years ago, like before I went to school. Yeah, so that's how it's changed it for me, is actually wanting to be like, wanting to engage other people, wanting to talk about it. This is a big moment in history. I mean, there's so many, but just one that we all have this common shared experience right now. This, you know, hasn't happened, at least in North America, for 100 years. But so I think, but yeah, that's how it's changed it for me. Also, sorry, lastly, quickly, is changing my medium, maybe. Like, maybe it's not just about drawing anymore. Maybe it's about puppy videos.
Awesome. And I think that's really sticking with me, what you just said about suddenly making work about right now, about, you know, your current lived experience. That's sort of the license almost to do that. Or that's neat. We'll open this question up to everyone in a moment. But first, Evelyn, how about you? How has working in the pandemic changed your relationship to the medium of drawing and painting, but also, you know, just more broadly, your relationship to your art practice?
Yeah, sort of a tough one, I guess. In a way, I feel like I'm a bit scattered in my practice. Like I'll change mediums all the time. I've done ceramic pretty heavily before the pandemic, and then I completely stopped. There was none of that, and I haven't touched it since. And I'll start again. But it just sort of, I guess, that accessibility of having a kiln or the community studio closing. So none of that was accessible until a few weeks later, but then I still didn't really go for it. So I guess, yeah, the immediacy I was trying to capture, like Tangiene said, like it's like of now. And I guess that just to me was like, okay, painting and just stuff I had already. Like I was working on some commissions, like private commissions, and I would just have paint in my little box, and then I would just use that paint to work on this. So it was very like, just gonna use the stuff I had out. And plus we were moving, and we just kind of moved in a few weeks ago, and so that all of the art supplies, everything is shoved together, so I can almost like sort of just grab at anything, and that kind of collage sensibility was gratifying, the immediacy and that kind of thing.
Right, like there's these sort of practical implications of working from home. My studios are closed, and some materials are toxic, and you can't use them in the home. And but again, that word immediacy, like sort of the immediate moment, the immediate lived experience, and supplies that are readily available. I'm wondering if anyone else would like to kind of chime in about their experience. I want to make sure we have a chance if anyone would like to ask questions for Tangiene and Evelyn, and we'll definitely have a time for that. But just because we're kind of moving along and it's sort of flowing right now, does anyone want to share their experience about how the pandemic is impacting your work right now, or either your relationship to your materials? If you'd like to say something, you can either just turn on your microphone and camera and jump in, or if you want to make a note in the chat line, that would be great.
I liked what Evelyn said about how moving all of your stuff and all your art supplies, like it sounds like it was a restart. You used what you had out, and then when everything was jumbled together picked up and moved, and maybe this resonates with me because I'm moving this weekend. So just kind of a restart to what you are like willing to grab at, you know, to in the flow of the process. And maybe it's I don't know, I feel like there's some sort of connection there with when the pandemic hit and what I experienced with my art practice. Like, you have all these plans, you have the studios open, this is what you're used to, and then things get tossed around, and then it's kind of like a restart, and you kind of just see what you have available to you again, and reach for what you can make at home.
I like that term, restart. Yeah, it's like this pause and a reset. Totally. Yeah. I see Anna's up on the board. Do you have anything to add, or jump in?
Yeah, I started making a mask, and this is not something that I ever thought that I was going to say in my life. Like, I never had it, I never wanted to, but recently I just started to notice that the current very common mask just really isn't working for me very well. It makes me extremely uncomfortable for a lot of reasons. I'm sure a lot of people, one of them is glasses. I'm sure anybody who do wear glasses, or does rather, understands this, but it's just one of them. So necessity is the mother of invention, and I started to make a mask that I hope will follow all the guidelines and also work. And I started to make it like really pretty, like way prettier than it needs to be. But it's, I guess, what do you do when you are an artist?
Yeah. Do you find, I'm open to everyone, does everyone feel like, I don't know, I felt like I was doing different things than I would normally do. So I'm just sort of riffing off what you said, Anna, like designing a mask and kind of like really responding very directly to the pandemic. And, I'm just seeing the chat line going on here too. I'm sorry if I missed any comments there. I'll check that in a second. I don't know, it's kind of, so it's so interesting to sit with a group of artists and talk about this, as all of our practices are so different. But yeah, I mean, Tangiene and Evelyn, you both mentioned this sort of immediacy, making work about now. Anna, your work, like the mask, is totally linked to that. And Charlotte, this word, a restart, so interesting to see these sort of recurring themes. And I just see, from Joy to everyone, looking at all the masks around town is fascinating. And if anyone has a pattern that doesn't fog your glasses, please share. Yes, it's the worst. Yeah. Any other kind of, I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in. So Joy and Evelyn have popped up. So Evelyn, you were there first, and then Joy.
Just on the mask topic, I have made a few with this one pattern. I know there's tons, but the first one I made in April. It's pretty good if you have glasses that that you're okay to like put on top of the mask, and it works really well. But my glasses sort of dig into my ears after a while, so it depends on your glasses. But if you want, I can post that.
Yes,
okay.
That sounds great. Thank you. Yeah, and Joy, did you have something to share as well?
Yeah, seems to be set up so we can't actually unmute ourselves.
Sorry, I didn't know about that.
Whoever's the host set it up so that you have to unmute us. That's why we couldn't talk. So I really like working en plein air, and I do paper collage. And doing paper collage outdoors in Newfoundland is a challenge because usually the wind's blowing and it doesn't work. Yeah. But I've taken advantage of the pedestrian, mall, if you want to call it that, on Water Street, which has been really fun. I mean, there's times where I feel like, even though like back in March, I was stressed up to here. I was in New York, and I came back from New York, and I was so afraid I was bringing COVID with me. And, it was all terrible. But eventually, okay, I don't have COVID. I didn't bring it back. I didn't make anybody sick. I didn't kill anybody. And then once the mall opened up, it was just like, oh, this is really fun. And if anybody is, I mean, it helps. I was working on the same collage very intermittently over about 5 weeks, always at the same table. And so people would just come by and they would talk. And at the beginning, they would just like, oh, are you doing art? And then they would walk past. But by the time it was almost done and they would look at it and go, oh my God, it's the street. It's right here. There's Rocket and there's this store and there's that store and there's the picnic table and stuff. So that's actually been like a silver lining, you know? I also feel like, and this isn't specifically art, but I do stuff with urban sketchers, which are people who get together and sketch ostensibly in cities, but any place. And they share their work online. And there's groups of urban sketchers all over the world. And pre-pandemic, you know, in a city, people would go sketch. In another city, they'd go sketch. And now everybody's doing Zoom stuff. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, you know, sometimes I do stuff with people in New York and sometimes I do stuff with people in Lebanon, or actually Lebanese people who are all over the world. And sometimes I do stuff with people in Chile. And, you know, the Chilean gatherings have Italians and English people, and the Lebanese gatherings have mostly Lebanese people, but they're in the Gulf and Egypt and Canada and, you know, Europe. And it's become a way of meeting people that we didn't have when we only met people because we were in the same place. Yeah. So there are some silver linings. And of course, for all of us being on an island where there's essentially no COVID, it doesn't hurt. Yeah. So we can stress, but we're not really worried about getting sick.
Yeah, we're so lucky. We're so lucky. And that's such I've really appreciated that part of the pandemic as well. I don't want to say the pandemic, but these strange circumstances of being able to kind of tap into locations anywhere in the world and attend artist talks and lectures and, you know, really anywhere. It's incredible. And speaking about, kind of thinking about these kind of, well, going back to Evelyn and Tangiene's work and this work about, you know, connection and connecting with people and place. I mean, that is something that has happened during this time, this like broader connection. We're on an island and it feels very safe, but it also feels like I'm less on an island at the same time. So I've been thinking a lot about those cables that stretch under the island, under the ocean, and are these little kind of umbilical cords to different, or, you know, fibers to different like places. It's kind of fascinating. I'm talking a little too much though, but I actually want to circle this back to Tangiene and Evelyn, because you've both been working on this residency program, the FARR Residency, which is a really, I also want to acknowledge what an incredible program that is, and to send clapping hands to Eastern Edge for really being such a supportive arts organization in a time that is very, very challenging and difficult. So yay to Eastern Edge and your amazing team. And on that note, Evelyn and Tangiene, do you have any tips that you've gathered? Because you've clearly, you've produced quite a lot of work and you've managed to kind of keep up with it. I know personally, I've kind of struggled with my studio practice the past couple months, just trying to, and I'm actually seeing works like yours is really inspiring and motivating. And do you have any advice or tips to share, you know, for continuing to work and to creating new work right now during the pandemic?
I think like a huge motivation personally was the residency. So I had sort of a practice that I was kind of doing for myself, and then seeing this pop up and being like, okay, I'm gonna try for it, and I'm gonna think of something that might be interesting to me to do, even if I don't get it. And so that was a big motivation for me. And I'm always about I'm good at deadlines, I'm good at, you know, all these things. So it's something I've struggled with to do my own personal practice, to like make a body of work that is a little bit intellectual or just, you know, cohesive since leaving school. Tips, I don't know about tips. Yeah.
That's fine. The question's just a departure point. But I think that's a great answer. That's great. How about you, Tangiene? Any kind of strategies that you've found work or tips to share?
Yeah, I always find tips difficult because I like that it's a departure point, but I always feel like everybody has their own way of making work and maintaining their practice. It would be hard for me to tell you like how to do it, what to do. I guess just finding your connection. Like for me, it's just like looking at your, like I like to share other people. I like looking at other people's artwork on social media. I like to see, I like to follow like instant coffee. I don't know if people here follow the instant coffee listings for calls for submission or exhibits here in Canada. Seeing what friends are doing. That's personally the way that I stay focused, is just following what other people are doing, listening to what everybody is kind of talking about. But I think that's it for me.
Yeah, that's great though, kind of opening up to like following, like connecting more on social media too, like following Twitter and Instagram, and it is a sort of new way. Well, it's not a new way, it's an old way, but it's, well, new old, I don't know. But yeah, it seems like there's more, it's become like a lifeline now in a different way, this sort of like, to be reaching and following and connecting other practices. Totally. Hey, Daniel.
Hey, I just wanted to like add a little note, and I think it's a tip that both of you could share, and it's a tip that I think is really important. It's just to ask questions and be like totally okay with not knowing everything, and knowing that there is a community to support you, and there are people who have like done this 100 times, or maybe they've never done it, but they can totally help you with it. And I think like the intention of this program was to help people share their practice and kind of overcome challenges that they're facing. And in both of the initial meetings we had with the two of you before the residency started, you were both very open about like, I have a question about this. Like, what about this? Does this make sense? And I think that was very valuable for the gallery team, because we're realizing like, if one person has this question, chances are everybody has this question. So I think asking questions is really important. And I think that you've both been very vulnerable and open about your practice at the same time. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, to echo those statements, really, really appreciated all of your comments and sharing about your work. And actually, maybe this is a really good time because we're getting close to an hour. We're just about there. They flew by. And does anyone have any questions for Tangiene or Evelyn about their work, about their practice, anything that came up that you'd like to add? Or does anyone have any comments or questions that we haven't addressed today that you're hoping we could chat about in our cozy virtual living room? You can type them in the chat line or just turn on the camera. We're such a small group, it's easy to just jump in. I'm also just looking at the chat line. I missed a couple points here. So from Joy, hi Joy, you're here. And you can I see, and then another, we'll get to Karen Ann's question next. So from Joy to Evelyn, I'm wondering what media she is using, and it looks like an interesting mix. Or do you want to add anything, Joy?
No, I just went online to look at everybody's work and see what you guys are doing. And I was like, she looks like she's doing collage. And then I was like, no, this must be a mix of all different kinds of stuff. So I was kind of curious.
Yeah, yeah, there's collage for like this one. Yeah, can't really see very well, but started off totally different, and I wanted to use masking tape to make some sort of map or whatever. I had worked on something kind of a concept that was similar, but then I just started putting paint over and what else is there? Oil pastels and all that stuff, and then I just let it stay. So it's lots of tape and whatnot. And I just recently did one with an actual map that was from the city, and I kind of put it upside down and just stuck it on there and incorporated it into the piece. But yeah, and then a little bit of paper there was a first aid book that I found, and it's from 1970 something, and it just had beautiful illustrations of lungs and things that really reminded me of what we're going through now. So that kind of like the body and those diagrams. So I might work on using some of that imagery a little bit later, but I didn't want to be too obvious either. Like I didn't want to, nobody needs to really think about that all that much more than we already are. So it's finding the line of like relevant and but not, not scary, I guess. Yeah.
There was one that actually looked like paper towel. Like it looked like it was paper towel with paint on it, the texture.
Yeah.
I do that in my stuff. I put paint on paper towels. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know how like when you're using your paper towel just to clean your brush. So one of my art teachers used to do this all the time. She would just, her beautiful like pinks and blues would all mix into this paper towel, and then she would dry it out, and then she would put it on pieces and create collages. So I really have to credit her with that kind of inspiration, but that was kind of just the start of that. And there's some tissue paper there too from Dalhousie. So whatever.
Paper towel, tissue paper, putting it, because I don't take images for collage. It's like a palette. But then I'll just put paint on paper towel, but it gets that dot pattern sort of from the towel, so you have to know that's what you want. But
yeah, and that's you could break it up or try and wet it so much, but you're right, you do get the little dots. Or I guess you could
buy little flowers.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, next person.
No, that's great. Thanks for it's nice to dive in a little deeper into the materiality of your work. So great question. Thanks, Joy. And we have a couple more questions or questions or comments, and then that'll probably pretty much take us to the end. I'm happy to stick around, but I just want to make sure we're, I'm sure people are busy and all of that. But all right, so next question. So this is from Karen Ann. This is in the chat line. Tangiene and Evelyn, what are your plans after the residency? Will each of you continue with this style of project, or do you have something new in mind to start? Great question.
So for me, I tried to put it on the Instagram, but I don't know how successful I was at relaying it. I always have a lot of future plans, but one thing that changed in the residency and this year with what's going on with COVID is I used to make like small to medium-sized works, and I think what I really like now is doing quite like a larger space, using a larger paper. So I mean, I'll be doing still portraits of friends children from social media. I might be incorporating more collage style. So that's definitely something that I'd like to keep up after this. And what's interesting too is I used to, like, even about 5 or 6 months ago, almost a year ago, I wanted to do landscapes with wild animals in it, but now I'm wondering, am I just going to maybe just pursue this moment with the coronavirus, just explore what's going on right now. So that's what I'm planning on doing.
Great, thank you. How about you, Evelyn?
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm excited to see what you do next, Tangiene. From the Instagram post, you had a lot of like almost like a note, like note to self, do this, do this. I do that a lot for myself too, but I don't want to post it. So for me, I'd like to keep going on this project. I have one that's in the works. To what end, I do not know, but just to keep making things, and haven't done much collage, and if so doing the collage with the landscape is kind of different for me. I might like to explore that a bit more.
Yeah, that's great. And as a kind of a side question to this, not to butt the question line in the question line, but I mean, will you both keep using social media as a way to share your work the way that you did with Eastern Edge at the FARR's residency? There's something neat about how you presented it and posted and describe what you were doing. I don't know, is that a tool you think you'll keep using?
Yeah, for me at least. It was kind of my one like publication, so put something up and talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, awesome. How about you, Tangiene?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I use Instagram typically to post a picture. But I'm curious. Yeah, maybe I'll keep it in list format. I'm not sure. But definitely will keep using Instagram to post my work. And I don't know if this is relevant. I think, I don't know, with the pandemic, I would like to have an exhibit too.
Yeah.
Just to see, like, just so people can see scale and detail and stuff.
It's so different in person. So there are quite a few comments. This is really great. So from MK to everyone. So starts off with Evelyn. I love how your landscapes feel like they are following dream logic. Beautiful description. They put together different spaces and times that seem logical in retrospect or at first glance, but then you look in more detail and you wake up or notice that certain things aren't where they're supposed to be. My thoughts then take me to the concept of displacement and anchoring in a space through art making and journaling. I feel like quarantine feels like a dream in terms of the passage of time, especially, and I think your paintings capture that essence. And then, yes, Tangiene responds that, yeah, Tangiene agrees as well. I totally agree. That's a really beautiful statement about Evelyn's work. And I think you really, there is that essence of dream logic. That's a really great term. And then from Art Vista Studio to everyone, I also have a question if there's time. Sure thing. And down below, join in. Why don't you, turn on your microphone.
Yes, hi.
Hi. Nice to see you.
Similar question, and it sort of answered it too for me. I was just wondering how this immediate, posting your work through the Instagram, and this immediate feedback from the audience. How does that affect your work? Like question to both of the artists. Sorry. This is one of the things, like the isolation, is that you don't have enough time to I don't talk to too many people, so it takes me to start talking again. And so the question was, how does this affect your work, and do you change your direction based on the feedback from the Instagram? How has it been? And Evelyn as well mentioned that she does commissions. So does that affect your personal practice, your choices, or what's next? I don't know, sort of.
That's a great question. And I'm sure it's one that we're all kind of trying to navigate in our own practices too. I'm really glad you asked that. Thanks.
Yes, because now everything is online, and then before, the different format, where you exhibit your work and you sort of don't know what the audience thinks of it. Do they like it? Do they heart it? And then Instagram is immediate. It's okay, this person likes it, or luckily you don't know who doesn't. So, but that's affected, or just some feedback on that. I don't know.
Yeah, Evelyn, awesome.
I don't think it does affect, I'm sure, just the style of what people seem to really like I don't know, it's the algorithm, right? Like what pushes things to the forefront. And I imagine people are just going, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. So I don't think there's too much in terms of like, oh, if a lot of people really like one image and not as much the other, or if there's comments and stuff, I don't think it affects too much, especially me. I have a very small Instagram following, so it's usually people I know who are commenting, and so I would love to actually, yeah, put it on a wall and I don't know, I guess this is kind of that same thing as sort of pulling it on the wall of the website and then we're talking about it. So it's really nice. I really appreciate this kind of interaction. I don't know if I quite answered the question.
Yes, I mean, it's sort of just like throwing it out there and starting point for, you know, conversation. But yeah, like totally, yeah, that's great.
It's neat how you said that the Instagram isn't, and Tangiene, you mentioned this too. Feel free to jump in, Tangiene. But yeah, you mentioned this too, like the desire to have the physical show is still there. Like it's still, it's not, like the social media you're getting, it's, yeah, exactly. And Anastasia, like you mentioned that too, like you can't kind of read the room in an exhibition opening, or it's, yeah, there's that desire for a physical kind of the artwork to be physically present and to connect with it in that way.
Yeah,
so
I think there's a little bit more honesty there because it's just like you and this wall and your work, and you just throw it out there, and you don't get the immediate pat on the back. That won't affect, like, you are more honest, you're doing it for the love of art, I suppose, whereas the Instagram and just social media really is so based on like approval, and I notice, like, in many ways, like it affects the direction of where your work is going, I guess. In certain ways. I mean, is it for good or for bad? I don't know.
I'll say a couple of notes that sort of relate, and maybe I might go off a little. One for Instagram for sure. Like I don't have, like, I've got like maybe 300 followers, which for Instagram is like nothing. And you're right, it could be friends. Like it's all like how many friends are just going, that's great. Like they just scroll through Instagram and they just go heart, heart, heart. Like, oh, I'm like, okay, everybody hearted it. From university, I recall, like, you know, you try to give critiques. You know, in university, sometimes we're not always the most skilled at critique. Sometimes you feel like you have to say something negative to give an actual critique, or you're not really sure what to say to the artist, or your own worried about your own stuff. So with Instagram, yeah, it's hard for me to gauge because a lot of people are just going to put a heart because it's my friends and they love me and they want to support me and encourage me. And so sometimes I think through Instagram, I read what I want to read, almost like a horoscope. Like if the horoscope says trepidation on this corner, then I'll be like, oh, I know which corner and I know how to be cautious. So same with Instagram, in a sense where I really liked doing Anna in the narration that I gave her. It was similar in almost in a sense to a previous artwork I made with my friend Ramona, where I kind of made it more into collage style. And so I think because people like my Anna picture, I automatically go, oh, well, that they like the storytelling aspect. Like I just made that up. Nobody said that in particular, but I'm like, well, I'm going to keep going with that. Or they like it because it's big. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So it's almost like I make that up. And then just the off topic, one thing that I did that I really liked, and I don't know if everybody else has experienced this or have had an experience similar, at this art studio that I was in called James Black Gallery in Vancouver. And I'm sure they have it like in all types of galleries where they have an open studio where people walk through. And I only participated one time as an artist. I was only there for about a year. But what I loved about it, like for me, this was one of the best experiences I had because there's probably, let's say a dozen artists all in the same studio, like on a couple of different levels. What I loved about it was that some groups of people would come in and they would stare at my artwork and just look at it and just be mesmerized and look through my prints. And then they'd walk past somebody else. Or they'd look at my work and they're just like, no interest at all. And it was great because that wasn't something personal. What I got to see from that was just how many different perspectives there are on art. Even like, I know that, you know how you know that in your heart and in your mind, but to actually see the physical reaction, for me, I don't know. I wish I had the right adjective for it, other than it was an excellent learning experience. And I almost want every artist to have that same experience, whether or not it be through a studio experience or otherwise. Yeah.
It's kind of liberating, isn't it? It's like it just says you can make the work. I mean, ultimately you have to love the work that you're making and feel proud of it and feel fulfilled by it, for sure. Because
these were strangers, not friends and not students.
Thanks for sharing that, because that's a really important thing to hear and be reminded of, for sure. And again, the talk about social media is really interesting right now, because it is one of the ways that we're experiencing more art. And I really liked how you mentioned storytelling through Instagram or storytelling through social media. And it seems that resonated with me, because it feels like those are the artist posts that I'm connecting the most to personally. I don't know if others feel that, but the ones that are the sort of multiple images leading one into the other, like a really carefully curated and crafted experience through social media. So I thought your Instagram takeovers were doing that too, and maybe that could be something to keep exploring. But it's great. We are at 8:15, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time, and I think we should sort of wrap up. There were a couple more. There was another comment here that from MK, who says, Tangiene, and this is, I think, kind of responding to after MK's comment about Evelyn's work. MK's also written a comment about Tangiene's work. So Tangiene, I feel much the same for your work. And just to kind of refresh everyone's memory, MK, you really beautifully described the dream logic of Evelyn's work. So kind of moving forward, Tangiene, I feel much the same for your work and the sense of connecting things and creating a dreamlike understanding. I love the sense of many moments happening at the same time in your painting of Anna and the vibrancy of color. Totally. Really great description. And I think, so this is a really good question in kind of towards the end here from Joy, maybe a good way to end off, because so Joy has just asked, is there any kind of community or group for artists in St. John's who are interested in feedback, both on our work and also in practical details of establishing ourselves, getting better known, things like that, Anglophone or Francophone? So that's maybe another question to end off with. What supports are needed right now? Does anyone have any suggestions to throw, to kind of suggest for Joy? And so St. John's, and even, across the island, across Newfoundland and Labrador, depending on where everyone's situated. I think Van L. Carfax is a really good resource. Daniel, I'm going to pass it over to you, because you're nodding, and I think you have a lot of information there as director of E, and you're really involved with Van L as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question, and it's a great time to ask that question. I mean, speaking from Eastern Edge at first, we have something that's in the works right now, sort of as a follow-up to the FARR program, which would act as like a community critique, or almost like where people can come together, share their work, kind of throwing it back to what art school was like and actually getting that feedback from one another live over Zoom, most likely. So the details of that are being sorted out, but I'm expecting that'll be near the end of the year, I would imagine. But right now, Vanel did just launch a mentorship program. And so I know that's not all inclusive to like everybody to be able to participate in with limited slots, but I'm hoping that this is sort of a turn in the right direction. And I know Eastern Edge definitely has our eye on it as well, because mentorship is something we all crave and it's something we all need. And I think at eventual points in our career, we realize, oh, I can be the mentee or the mentor in some aspects. So being able to help each other is something that's on everyone's radar, and hopefully we'll be seeing more opportunities for that. I have a couple of like little announcements just to wrap up. If anyone else wanted to add to that conversation first, feel free to jump in and then I'll jump back.
One thing to throw in, the Grenfell Visual Arts Facebook page sometimes posts opportunities that happen in the Corner Brook region and Western Newfoundland region. So if you like the page, you get the notifications when they come out. There's a mix of stuff on that page, but that is something that we try to post and update as much as we can. But even just going back to social media, follow Vanel, follow, you know, the like Grenfell Visual Arts page, follow Visual Arts Nova Scotia. I mean, you can follow, I mean, a lot of organizations, you can access their workshops right now, like across the country. You don't have to necessarily, some of them aren't only for members and are accessible. Some are specifically for members, but definitely something. And yeah, I think reaching out is a good way to do it, or just reaching out to Eastern Edge. And yeah, feel free to email me anytime if I know anything, I'll pass it along. But yeah, but that's so exciting, Daniel, about the programming. And the mentorship program looks incredible, looks really, really good. And it's exciting to hear about the sessions at Eastern Edge for that kind of community support for like group crits. And yeah, I'm talking way too much, so
not at all.
is there, I don't know if there's any last comments or last comments from Evelyn and Tangiene, anything that you want to share to kind of wrap up right now? How are you feeling?
No, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much, Eastern Edge, Daniel, Charlotte, Anna, and Darcy. It was a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for asking so many questions. And it was very nice and smooth and easy.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's all because of you two. Really, like, it was total pleasure for me. It was really fun to be a part of this. And Evelyn, do you have any last minute thoughts or things to share?
Same as that. Just thank you. And it was really a pleasure, and really like hearing other people's experience and bouncing off my own. So that's really nice. Plus, for the mask, I have to find that link. I don't know where to post it if this thing gets closed. So
we can share it for you. No worries.
Yay! Thanks, Danielle.
It's the best one. It's the only one I've tried. So that's my decision.
That's great. I really think you both spoke really well about your work, and it was really great to, I think we actually got some really interesting parallels today, this kind of theme of immediacy and making art about the now, about the moment, and everyone, this kind of reset that sort of Charlotte brought up. I think that's something I'm going to be thinking about these things after I click end of the Zoom call, but I'm really grateful for the conversation. Thank you so much for being so open and generous, sharing your work, and congrats on the residency. And I'm sure I hope I meet you both soon, and definitely Tangiene back in Corner Brook. I'll be back next week, but we'll have to, love to meet in person sometime for a socially distant, but we can go for a walk outside or something. And anyone who's rolling through Corner Brook, do say hi. Okay, Daniel, I think you had a few closing comments to finish us off.
I mean, first of all, obviously, thank you so much to the three of you for participating tonight, to Evelyn and Tangiene for participating in the residency. This is just kind of like getting the ball rolling. We have 4 more FARR artists in residence coming up in the next couple of months, so I'm super excited to see what comes from that. So this session is being recorded. If you want anything removed or anything over the next couple of days, just email us, and we'll hopefully get this up by like early next week as a resource for everybody. There's a reminder that last week, actually, we had a conversation with Tangiene and with her friend Anna, who is a poet. And so that video is available on our website just for a couple more days. So I'll put that in the chat if anyone's interested in checking it out. Charlotte did a great job putting that together, and there's even like a handy timestamp of different poems that Anna had read. So if you want to flip through and experience that, you can. And next Thursday, I believe that date is nailed down now. correct me if I'm wrong, but Evelyn will be having another Makers Evening, so we can all join in, chat about her work, work on our own projects, and actually there will be special guest, James Knott, and James is actually here this evening, assuming it's the same James Knott. I could be wrong. Cool. So special guest next week. We're really looking forward to that conversation as well. So feel free to follow us on social media. You'll get updated. And again, thank you all so much for attending. Can't wait to see where this goes.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, everybody. This
Bye.
is great.